All right. Well, this is the Potomac Valley Scottish Fiddle Club. If anybody's online, can you just let us know if you've got sound and video? And then I'll be getting started with this workshop. I've been really quite excited about this workshop for a long time. This one's a long time in coming because it dates back to when I was in college and first playing Scottish fiddle music. So I started playing shortly after getting to college and finding Scottish dancing. As soon as I found Scottish dancing, okay, sounds like sound.
Yay. Don't have anyone on, but we have sound.
Okay, so anyway, as soon as I found out about Scottish dancing and people playing live music for Scottish dancing, I got all excited about the music, and I went to my college library. I was very lucky. I went to a college that has an amazing library system, and so I went to the music library rare books section and found Scottish fiddle tune books. So my introduction, for example, to the Simon Fraser collection was looking at an original Simon Fraser collection in the rare books room. I was so excited about it, and I told Ed Perlman, who ran the Boston Scottish Fiddle Club, and he said, "Oh, you can get a reprint of that." So that it wasn't quite so rare after all to be able to have access to it. But one of the things that was in that collection is something that is very rare indeed. It's Keith Norman MacDonald's Puirt to Beul collection. Keith Norman MacDonald is the guy who put together the Sky collection in the late 1800s. We have experienced many tunes from the Sky collection because it is just full of really good music. So that is probably what he's best known for in the fiddle world. Now, so I examined the book in the rare book collection. It's kind of unassuming cover. All it says is Puirt to Beul, which means mouth music. It says mouth tunes or tunes for dancing. It's basically how you make music for dancing when you don't have instruments available. And so this is from the Gaelic-speaking areas of Scotland. Keith Norman MacDonald in particular was from Skye, and he was interested not only in dance music in general, but also particularly the music found in Skye. And he went around and collected from various sources people singing dance music, this Puirt to Beul, which literally means tunes by mouth. In other words, you sing them.
Tunes out of the mouth.
Tunes out of the mouth, yeah. I mean, ah is a preposition. Puirt means tunes. Beul is mouth. And any case, so you say, oh, great, mouth music. I'm so excited. It's got the music and the words. Well, and I should show this to this camera so people can see it in the online version. Here is what the tunes look like. People online can see this.
Here.
Okay. Does this look like sheet music to you? No. There's no staff. There's no clef. There's no key signature. There's nothing of that kind. This is a type of notation. If any of you are familiar with ABC notation, that's used for computer transmission of tunes in a kind of concise way. This is a similar thing, but it's a predecessor. It's called solfa notation, and if you've ever heard of like the do re mi fa so la,
Yeah,
so la, that's it. So it uses an S for so, a D for do, an M for mi, R for re.
Right, so the notes aren't even, I couldn't see it that well. The notes
Right.
are all at one height.
Right, so this is just a string of letters, S, D, M, S, M, D, L,
Oh, boy.
right? And it means
Yeah.
so, do, mi, do, la. right? So you can translate it, but then it's got all this punctuation, colons and semicolons, and those help you figure out what the rhythms are supposed to be. But you basically need a decoding system. So, and when I first acquired this, the internet was a little less developed than it is today. And so I couldn't just go on the internet and say, hey, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So I had to do research to figure out what it meant. Nonetheless, in 1999, I started transcribing these. I actually have the tune records. I looked to see how old my finale files were, because I started translating this book into readable music. And so from 1999 to 2001, I did transcribed about half the book. And then I had a kid. My daughter's now 23. Anyway, after I had two, it just got shelved for a while. I had two kids, then they finally both were either in kindergarten or preschool, and I started doing the project again because I got this nice email in 2007 from Jamie McDonald. We'd had this discussion. He's a Gaelic language professor at St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. It's actually one of the biggest Gaelic language programs at any university because it's close to Cape Breton, and there are a lot of people in Cape Breton who want to study Gaelic because of the access to cultural heritage that it gives them. So I knew Jamie from other reasons throughout the years. So when he contacted me and said, hey, do you want to do a project? I'll do the Gaelic language part, you do the music translation. I was like, yes. So I started doing that. Then I had my third kid at the end of 2007, and this got tabled. And then Jamie contacted me at some point and said, I actually heard there's this other guy doing a project on this, and let's just let him do it. And so he did. The book that this guy put out, his name is William Lamb, is extraordinarily good. It's very well researched, and it more to the point, it's a thorough work of scholarship that is quite accessible to musicians. So let me just pull up the e-version of this. Which, by the way, I made, I thought I had this, and I obviously forgot to buy it, or I saw it for sale and didn't ever complete a purchase. I remember looking at this. So I actually made this call to Scotland to get the publisher to send me an ebook version, because I was having trouble with their downloadable port. So here's what the cover looks like. So William Lamb did this work, and it's got not all the tunes are indexed, which they aren't in the original. And then there's all these notes explaining everything about it. And then you get to the tunes, and they're like this. And he's reproduced Keith Norman MacDonald's original notes. And then farther along, he's got his notes, further research that he did. And then there are many footnotes, so you can go to whatever sources he used to do this scholarly work to find more about it. And sometimes he's explaining nuances of the language, and sometimes he's explaining how the music was either edited or corrected, or references to other versions. So it's essentially the work that I was planning to do in collaboration with the Gaelic language professor, but done by somebody else with less trouble to me, in a wonderful edition. So I recommend this work.
You can buy it from Tie Nutshade
Yeah,
Publishers.
Tie Nutshade. right? Which means, what does that mean? The house of, what's jade?
Strings.
Strings, right, right, because the founder is a harper.
But there's also kind of a sort of mythical center of Scotland, north around Killiecrankie. That's there's called the Tainachud. It's the House of Strings, where harp supposedly centered historically.
Right, and there are all this stuff about wood, trees, harps, like the right kind of wood from the right kind of tree that can make your harp. There's a whole bunch of mythos about this. So if you're interested, that's worth researching that name and finding more. In any case, so I've gone through and made a selection of mouth music tunes from this book for us to learn. And I have a whole bunch of other information because obviously you can tell I'm pretty geeked out about this whole topic. So really the big question is, what should I teach you first? So a lot of these tunes are brief, right? They're 8 bars of music long, but that doesn't necessarily make them the easiest to learn. I have a longer tune here that consists basically of 2 phrases, but they're wacky. So that's a candidate, but I'm not sure that's what you want to learn. So I'm not sure where to start. What would you prefer? A Beul, a Strathspey, the unusual tune, the one I just said was kind of wacky? What are you interested in?
I would go for Strathspey.
Music.
In the spirit of Bill Lamb's ongoing debate with Michael Newton about the origins of the Strathspey and vocal music, let's go with Strathspey.
Okay, we'll go with the Strathspey. And I'll have to say, since I just was able to acquire the book, I haven't read all of his notes. I skimmed a bunch of it, and then I read parts relevant to the pieces I chose. But I'm not going to comment on that particular debate.
That's
that you just
a series of
alluded to.
ongoing dueling papers, which I'll be happy to send you.
I'm happy to have more on that. But so I'm going to give you, let's see if I can find the appropriate page. I'm going to give you a Strathspey, and this is a pretty well-known Strathspey. This is the mouth music version of it. So the tune is most commonly known as Cawdor Fair. And sometimes it's C-A-W-D-O-R, fair. And sometimes it's called Calder Fair, C-A-L-D-E-R, just because of the pronunciation similarities. It has other names. This tune is found in an elaborate version in the Simon Fraser collection, where it's called the Hawthorn Tree of Cawdor. And I will just say that the Hawthorn Tree, Simon Fraser always has something to say about the tunes. And what he says about it is, the hawthorn tree is the symbol of the Campbell family of Lord Cawdor, and is toasted on the day of the Cawdor Fair. So hence the common name Cawdor Fair, and why there's a hawthorn tree involved at all. However, the thing about the mouth music, and one of the fun things in Will Lamb, he's Will, right?
Okay.
Will Lamb's introduction is that he's categorized the types of tunes in this mouth music collection, and he kind of did like this little bar graph of what the themes were. And, you know, some of the themes were generally love and or lust, drinking, and then like 3 small categories of other stuff. So it's like very, very thematic of certain types. Anyway, I don't know which one this falls into. Hang on. I have to look up the words. So that means I've got to go away from here. Okay, this one doesn't help. So I've got to go back to the other section with the notes there. Oh, I see what it is. I put the wrong page number on it. Okay, sorry for that. Let me look up the actual page number. 74. Okay, so the title in Gaelic is taken from the first line of the mouth music song. It's called Rúlik Kayak Echen Vor, or Big Hector's old wife will reel. So dancing. The theme is dancing and revelry. And the words are not profound. Big Hector's old wife will reel, Janet will set. Setting and reeling are like the two main figures of folk dancing in the Highlands. And then you repeat that. And there you go.
So all of these tunes, I mean, all of these, they had words, they were
Yeah.
songs.
Mm-hmm. So I'll show it here. These are the words and songs as transcribed in Will Lamb's book. And now you can see it, just a set of Gaelic words with English on the other side. And so it's not really that profound. There's a second verse. It says, the old woman at the roof beam said to the old woman on the floor, I could dance very well to Jackie Tar. We know the tune Jackie Tar, it's hornpipe. I could dance very well to Jackie Tar when I was young. The words are chosen because they're rhythmic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if you're doing well, you're speaking complete sentences instead of just babble, babble, babble. So if you're looking for profound things in mouth music, you will not always find it. Having said that, there are some tunes in here that are pretty, I would say, much deeper than that. This is not particularly one of them. Let's see if the violin has held its tuning, since I just had to change strings. Not. Okay, so here we go. Here is the tune. Rúlik Kayak Echen Vor. Big Hector's old wife will reel, more commonly known as Cotter Fair. Okay, and the other thing that I'll mention about this collection in general is that it's in singer's keys. So this is in a range. The usual tune is played in the key of G. Most people don't like to sing. Yeah, it's pretty high.
Listen to someone singing.
Right. So hence this one's in the key of C, the mouth music version of this. So let's go ahead and learn this tune. It starts on C, so this is a C natural. Is everybody still in tune, by the way? I know I'm not staying in tune.
Are we supposed to sing with the tune?
You can.
My A is still in tune.
Okay, so we're going to be going down a C scale. So from the note C natural, but with dottedness, because that's the rhythm of the language. And to finish off this first measure of the tune, all right, so I'm just going to say one thing. The words to that line that we just played, Rühle kajek eken vor. Rühle kajek eken vor. So it's all about the words matching, dictating how the rhythm goes.
Which means the rhythm may change in a different verse.
Right, it might change in a different verse, which goes right along with the fact that strathspeys are often played with slightly different dot and snap patterns. If you look in two different sources for a particular strathspey, you'll probably find two different dot and snap patterns. Certain melodic features really only go with certain rhythms. If I did, it doesn't sound as Scottish. So that is pretty much always going to be snap and not the dotted rhythm. But, okay, good, it's still charging. All right. So the thing that I want to emphasize throughout this particular workshop is this is really a workshop in how Gaelic language words mesh with melody. And it should, if we keep dipping back into the words without us all being Gaelic scholars, we can still get a clear picture of why these strathspeys and reels and such are, rhythmically the way they are. Okay. So, next is and there the words are Agus Shetech Shonech. Also Janet set. Shonech is Janet. The verb always comes earlier than the subject in Gaelic. So putting the two together. Okay, that's half of the first part. the next half is the same, and then a different ending. I will just mention a lot of sung tunes. Singers don't like these kind of tunes that go ba 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 ba. That's hard to sing, but it's easier to sing da 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 da. So singers tend to do scale patterns more often than they do these jumpy things. So if you see jumpy tunes, it's more likely to have been pipe tune or fiddle tune in origin, which then got adapted by the singers. If it's linear like this with lots of scale work, it could have originated as a song. A lot of the mouth music is taking tunes that were known in the community and putting words to them just so that you could, dance even if you didn't have a musician who could play an instrument in your midst. So we now have the first half. I'm going to put it together. There is one little segue that's basically just to connect the bits. So did you see that little connector? So it's just going right. So it's just going up the scale in between. And a singer would just da, 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 da. They turn it into a bit of a vocal ornament. There's no word that fits those two notes. It's just part of the expression of the singer. Okay, let's put those 4 bars together and play it through a few times. Okay. Any questions so far? Is that good? You ready to move on to the next part? Bowings. I'll just mention one thing about bowings. This is mouth music. They didn't care what your bowings are. So the fact that it might get confused at some point is no issue to them. It means it's up to you to solve it. So there are things you can do if the bowing is not working out properly and feels awkward. It probably means you should be going the other way at that point. And I have several suggestions. One is to slur something that's not slurred. The other is to unslur something that is slurred. And then the other is to leave a little hole and lift the bow and set it where you want it. And the last suggestion is make up a note so that you have an extra bow stroke to fill in. So in any case, those are my 4 tricks for how to deal with awkward bowings when you're dealing with music that was not written for fiddle and you're playing a fiddle. Of course, anybody out there who's not playing a fiddle, you're not having this problem in the first place, so. All right, let's play through one more time, and if you run into awkward bowings, try one of those tricks. Okay, did anybody try anything? Did it fix what you're looking for? All right, let's learn the next part. So next part, We're going up high for the singers. The highest note in this tune is an E, so only 2 notes higher than we started, which is good. You know, a lot of vocal melodies, you can get into a trap where you start on what seems like a good note and then you discover it goes 8 notes higher later and you can't reach it. But this tune only goes 2 notes higher than where you started, so you're probably pretty good if you start on a certain note. All right, the B part has the biggest jump in the tune other than going down, so the biggest jump up is this, from G to C. So let's just find that. Okay, and it continues like this. Again, more scale work. Next measure, similar idea, 1 note higher on the scale, so jumping from A to D. And let me add a little bit more. Okay, and so those 2 bars put together. Good? More? Okay. Last 2 bars coming up, so we're winding it down. Highest point of the tune, we were just on a D, E note, and a scale down. And the ending. So last 2 bars, the scale down. Up, an octave jump. Okay, here's the second half put together. put together the whole tune. So how did it start? And who remembers? Scale? Going down from C?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. And that repeats, and then we have our second half with a. Okay, so let's give it a go. Here we go. right, that was that dancing tempo by the end. Although the dancing tempo has a range. The type of dances they would be doing to this is the Highland Strathspey Reel. You can see a sort of stylized version of this. If you go to Scottish Festival, they'll have a Strathspey Reel as a competition dance at the Highland dancing area. It was a social dance in its cultural context, and there are many ways you could do it. you'd have 3 people reeling, you could have 4 people reeling, you could have 6, you could have 8. And they would face one another or face the back of somebody, depending on the arrangement of the reel, in a line, and they would weave amongst each other, and that's the reel portion of the dance. And then they would face one another and do fancy steps, and that's the setting portion of the dance. And it sounds really simple, but it's a dance that you don't get bored of, because there are many ways to do this reel, and there are even more ways to do setting. And in fact, if you're some hotshot dancer, you're inventing new setting steps that you're going to show off at the next opportunity. So there are many, many ways to do this dance over and over again without it being monotonous, especially if you have different music. And the different rhythms of the tune might inspire you to do different setting steps.
Would the reels and the sets, reel and setting, occur always in the same part of the tune, or?
Yeah, they'd be 8 bars and 8 bars. Because most of the setting footwork takes either 2 bars or 4 bars to accomplish. And then you might do it to one side and then to the other side, which would take up 8 bars to do a full, 4-bar figure of setting, twice on each side, once on each side. Or if it's a 2-bar figure, then you're doing it one side, the other side, one side, the other side.
And would it be like called or
No.
taught, or?
No, the form of this is really simple. Reel for 8 bars, set for 8 bars,
And then it's up,
and then do it again.
but the reel, would it be the same reel pattern throughout a given tune? Or
There are historically different ways of doing it. For example, you can start by the person you're facing passing right shoulder. You could also choose to pass left shoulder. And then you're moving, weaving the other way around. It feels different. There are lots of variations on reeling, but it's always just moving past people, passing either by the right or left.
And would they be doing what we think of today as the Strathspey step?
Yeah, they would probably not be just walking the reel. They would be doing steps. But it wouldn't necessarily be the kind of steps that you see in modern context, either in Scottish country dance, which does do Strathspey and reel with footwork, or in Highland dance, which also does Strathspey and reel with footwork. They use slightly different footwork. Both of those are kind of codified now, and back before, in historical times, this stuff was a little more free form.
Which
But
a good option might be possibly looking at the Scotch 4 up in Cape Breton, because that's supposedly an 18th century dance, or late 18th century dance that came over.
Yes and no, because that's another version. It's a more organic version than the, what's evolved into like competition Highland dance. But nonetheless, it's evolved a certain way, and now people say, well, this is the way you step in the Scotch 4.
Right.
So
it's fixed as well.
Yeah,
or it's calcified.
It's a little more fluid than the competition form, for sure. But I think that historically there were a rather large variety of ways of stepping, both for the reeling and the setting parts. And that it probably varied from one place to another, and even individually, like, somebody would be known for having a particular style and way of doing it. And it would also matter what kind of shoes they were wearing. Because some of, like the Scotch 4 is meant to be done in hard shoes. The Highland dance is currently done in soft shoes. Did they historically wear soft shoes? Yeah, they probably did. Did they always wear soft shoes? No. Sometimes they wore hard shoes, sometimes they wore soft shoes. It depends what you're doing. So, both kind of shoes historically existed. And so I'm sure depending on the circumstances, you get different stepping. All right, well, I think that's enough of that one particular tune. Let's move on and learn another tune. Do you want a reel, a Strathspey, or an other?
It's an other.
An other,
An other, yeah.
okay,
Like an other object, like a messy object. instead of-
messier object. Okay, so for the other, you have your choice of a jig, or you could have a reel with 3 beats per bar.
Oh, we just have,
What do we have now?
we have, Sandy says the sound just stopped working,
Really?
and this was 20 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
All right, let me double check.
Well, let's see if the sound is working now. It could be because. Depending on the arrange.
Yeah, we can hear her.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep, we've still got sound.
okay, that's good. All right. Well,
Let's do a reel in 3.
the reel in 3? Okay.
Yes, almost a waltz.
No, it is not almost a waltz, not even close to being a waltz, not like,
It's a slip reel.
heck no, is it a waltz? So definitely no on the waltz. It's, we have had a reel in 3/2, and we have some reels that have been in 3/2 briefly, like Tamarack or Down has a 3/2 bar in it. I didn't bring that one today, but I did bring one of the reels that we did back in book 14, so nobody remembers it. And it's also from a Highland source, but it's called The Famous Bridge. Did that sound like a reel? Sort of? Yeah, so that's The Famous Bridge. So that's not the tune we're learning, but I wanted to give you that context because it's definitely da 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 da, you know, except it has an extra beat. So that da 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 ba ba dee da 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 ba dee da 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 ba da da da, that would be a reel in 2. But if it sounds like this tune does. So I've just played the whole tune.
Would it still be danced as a reel? Or would
Well,
steps be
we
different?
don't know. I mean, these are tunes for dancing, right? But nobody knows what dances were done to these tunes with the extra beat in them. We don't have a record of that. So what was it? Was it stepping that had like an extra thing in the step? It very well could be. One thing that has disappeared from Highland dancing that is very clear historically from the music is that it wasn't always in 4-bar, 8-bar units. There are a number of tunes with 6-bar phrases. And so these had not just a 4-bar unit, but 2 extra bars of footwork or something.
And you've given some tunes where Strathspey, they were 4-bar units in the first 2 parts, and 6-bar
then
units,
6-bar.
which suggests a tune that's flexible enough, or a dance that's flexible enough, maybe that dance that's in 2-bar units.
Right, there are lots of possibilities here. But we don't have the dance record that correlates with this. I mean, I think we're pretty lucky to have the words that correlate with the tune.
Yeah.
So this tune is called A Hodil Ale. I'm sorry, I'll because it's just what's called vocables. It's the Gallic equivalent of fa la 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 la. We all are familiar with vocables. We just are not all familiar with that term for them. But if you just say syllables that sound cool, that fit the tune and fit the rhythm, this tune is full of it, of that kind of thing. So it has, let's see. I should have practiced singing before I did this workshop. Yeah, I think my A keeps going flat because I had to replace it. But so a real L, a real U, he real U. So the vocables fit that line, and then the second measure is more spontaneous. So this is a song where it's all of these vocables, and then the line that is the rejoinder to the vocables is, "Hey, you're welcome, Ronald," and then it repeats again. It says, "You're welcome, good health to you," and then another verse later, it's vocables, blah blah blah. "Tonight is the night of the wedding," and then "Tonight the bride will be censored." It's left out of Keith Norman MacDonald's book. I mean, he published this in the height of Victorian era. They're not going to print words like that, even in Gaelic. So you just have to use your imagination. It's just completely cut out. So, but you can get the idea. This is kind of a banter song, right? And Keith Norman MacDonald describes that it would be sung by two persons with alternating lines. So there's like this chorus that everybody can join in. That's the fa la la part, the vocables. And then one witty person says, "Hey, Ronald, blah, blah, blah." And then they have the space of the vocables for the reactive person to say something either funny or pertinent or at least makes sense
So this
in
is
reply.
improvised.
So it would be improvised, right? And then there's the next line is, that he wrote down was, "Oh, I love the soldier," and then it says the last line has been lost. So in other words, the people that he got this from were kind of like messing around, and maybe they forgot the words, or maybe it was too scandalous for the old person singing it to be willing to share it with an outsider. Because, but this was a way for people to like comment on current happenings in their community, or to tease one another, or just to, share the news, or just, say silly things. It didn't always have to be, something that pertinent. So let's learn the basic pattern. And you're gonna love this tune because you only need to learn 2 bars, and the rest is messing around with rhythms on that. So. Okay, that's bar 1. Bar 2. Together, we get the full phrase. variations on that. The rest of the tune is nothing else other than rhythmic variations. So we've learned all the melody that there is in this tune. And what we learned was the first line. Everything here is the same melody with slight rhythmic variations based on whatever the words are. So they, tried to record it accurately from somebody singing at one point. But if somebody sang different words, the rhythm would be different. So you can just make stuff up. Instead of, or, I'm just putting in different word rhythms. I'm making them up. I don't actually have enough Gaelic to, think of spontaneous, witty things to say in Gaelic. But different words would give different rhythms like that. And then... Okay, so let's play this for a while and just get into the zen of it. There's something mesmerizing about these really simple tunes, where melodically, that's not what it is about, right? There is a melody, but this tune is not about melody. This tune is about rhythm, and then it's obviously about this game that they're playing, where you've got you've got either 2 bars or 4 bars of vocables to come up with your witty response. So think about it as this exchange. And even though you're playing the same melody, it's somebody else speaking, new voice. What are they going to say? Just a little bit different. Okay, so let's just play this for a while and mess with rhythm variations. Da ba da ba da dee dum ba 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so was that fun? Or monotonous?
So you're not allowed to put in a different note on that moment?
Well, probably a little variance, right? Like, But, it's more of in the order of decoration rather than, you're not doing jazz where you're, improvising the melody line.
Right.
What you're doing is messing the rhythm around in order to suit different thoughts or moods.
Do they sing with that too?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they'd be singing with this. So I'm not good enough to sing this, but it's Eho real el hirilu. That's the vocable part. Shedo vekagran la rielu. Dovek doslancha hirilu. Onak foshavanish an horamo. So those are some of the little rhythmic variations in the language of this.
And you got 6 beats to say it in.
Yeah. That's basically it, right? You've got a certain number of beats to fill. You don't have to use the same subdivisions of the rhythm, but you do have to finish the thought within that space. And it's got to be at least a half a thought, because you could do, the other half of the thought, or you could leave the other half of the thought to the next person. And this could be a round robin thing. You could have a big circle where, everybody's dancing and singing, and then like 3 turns in advance what it's going to be, when it's going to be your turn, so you're thinking, okay, what is the funny thing I'm going to say? Right. So that's the context of this. All right, ready for another one? More by ear?
Sure.
Okay, since that one was only 2 bars long, in essence. Okay, so again, you have the choice of strathspey, reel, or other.
I picked last time, so somebody else.
Somebody just say.
Yeah.
Reel.
Reel.
Okay. Sure, let's go with it. Okay, I'm going to give you this one. This one's pretty cool. And a little bit unusual. And also more or less unique to this situation. Let me go find it in the book here. All right, this one, besides being found in Keith Norman MacDonald's Puirt to Beul, some of these are also found in his other collection besides the Sky collection, which is this one, the Gesto collection, and it is called Gesto. I had to look that up because when you see the GE, you're like, okay, is that going to be Gesto or Gesto? In Gallic context, it would normally be Gesto, and this is a place name I believe in Skye. And certainly this looks like the landscape of Skye. The Skye does look kind of like that. And it's this fuzzy copy of it. But this is kind of like his catch-all for interesting Gallic music. All right, it's got pipe tunes, it's got mouth music. He has some songs with words in here. So there's a fair amount of crossover. In other words, there are a few things in here where this was published first, and he obviously said something like, I should just collect all these mouth music things in one place. And he did, eventually. But a lot of these things are unique to this collection of mouth music. But a few are found elsewhere. So this particular tune I'm going to give you is also found in the Gow collections. It is 100 and some years older than the mouth music collection. But what Gow does not have at all is any words. This is just sheet music. And so the tune in Gow is known as the Three Girls of Puirt. Puirt is the largest town on the Isle of Skye. And it actually means Puirt, the port of the king, is what that town name means. But it looks like it has something to do with a tree, if you look at it from the English perspective. It doesn't. And it says, a Skye air communicated by Miss McLean, according to the Gows. So it was known by a woman who lived on Skye more than 100 years before Keith Norman MacDonald wrote it down. And I've heard this played by Billy Jackson, the harp player. He plays a beautiful version of this. He, of course, plays it slowly because that's the general harp approach to tunes. But so I'll play you a bit of Billy Jackson's version, which actually his version is the Gow version. Let me play you the Gow version of this. And in the style of Billy Jackson. You get the idea, right? And the Gao collection says play it slowly. It's marked slow. Well, that is not the idea of this Puirt de Beul version, this mouth music version, because the words are not anything you'd want to sing, slowly and savor. It's, from that melody and the elegant version I just gave you of it, what would this tune be about? What words would go with it? What would Miss McLean on Skye have been thinking of with this Three Girls of Portree?
It's sort of romantic, probably.
Something romantic. The first, in the Scottish style, the first maiden did this, and the second maiden did that, and the
Fairy
third,
pools might be
third
involved.
maiden did this, and that was the charm, right? It would be some story like that, right? That the actual words. There's a hole in the big boat. There's a hole in the galley. There's a hole in the big boat, and the joiners can't fix it. There's one,
Well, that could
and
be sad.
there is one over here, and two over there, and two over here, and three over there, and four over there, and five over there. There are almost 9 holes in the boat.
So that might be sad, but with that many holes, it's not going to be slow.
Yeah, no. It would not be fun.
So the name
Sounds
of
like a counting song.
right, and just so that you know that it's not just Keith Norman's oddball source that took this elegant song about the three maidens of Portree, and turned it into a silly song about a sinking boat. This tune is known in the piping world, and it's found in older pipe collections, and it's called "The Boat Leaks."
Okay.
Right. So.
Maybe the maidens put the holes in the boat.
So anyway, obviously, I'm still curious about the three maids of Portree.
Yeah.
Well, we know
And I
that
want to know what their story is.
Puirt de Beul acquired multiple sets of words.
Absolutely, and and this is the other thing is if you can't remember words very well, the whole thing about Puirt de Beul we just learned from the last song is you make stuff up. Right. So you don't remember what it was about the three maids of Portree? Well, I do have this boat and it has a hole. Let me sing about that. Oh yeah, 1 hole, 2 full hole, red fish, blue fish. Right. Yeah. So anyway, that kind of thing goes on in this singing context. So, Hatol era vata mor. Okay, and when I'm talking about there's a hole in the boat, a hole in the galley, and it's a bata mor is a big boat, as opposed to a little boat. So I did look up some pictures, so let's see if we can get them here. Let's try to find them. Oh, it can't open the page. Well, let's see if I can call it up fast enough here. And connect this up so that I can show you the pictures, because I would like to show you what a big boat is in the Western Isles of Scotland context. Because I think it's important to get a mental image of what the song is about. So let's go see if it will show the picture. Oh, man, okay. Maybe it's actually, maybe I actually didn't put it on my phone. Mm. Oh, here we go. All right.
Oh, my.
This is a big boat, or a beerlin, or a galley. It sails, but it also has oars along the sides. And I'll show this here. What does that remind you of?
The Viking.
Yeah, so let me show you the other pictures that I looked up. Viking longship. Looks kind of similar. Very similar, in fact. Yeah, so we now know that this type of boat was common in northern Atlantic seas off of Europe. Both Vikings and Gaels using a very similar type of boat.
Also, the Gaelic aristocracy of the Western Isles started off as Vikings.
Many of them did. So, so this big ship, or big boat, that has the holes in it, let's learn the tune about it. And go back to the page with the tune. And now you can see how a boat has definitely room for up to 9 holes or even more. All right, so it's in the key of F. Definitely a singer's key. So that it doesn't have to go any higher than this. And that's kind of optional. Yeah, it's that one. But I might sing. Yeah, I like that one. No. So let's find our pickup note of F natural. Yeah, right. And then C. I'm going to add something this time. Starts the same way, but hops up to the F. Let me add something to that. So we have 2 bars so far. The song continues with Okay, and last bar of the phrase. Okay, so putting the phrase together, pick up note F. Okay, questions about that?
I give up.
No,
I'm
too,
done.
too many notes?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, so it ends unresolved, and that's so that you can keep singing this over and over and over again until you run out of things to say about the boat and have to switch to a new topic. Does anybody have a good A? Because my A keeps drifting off here. Okay, so let's go ahead and play what we know so far, and then we have another part to learn. And here's what's next. So we're leading it. Next, excuse me, the first note of the second part here is an F. I'm going to add to it. Great. Okay, next bar starts the same way. Goes to a D instead of a C. And I'm going to add to this. So the first two bars of the B part, let's try that. It's goes to C, goes to D. There's more. So 2 more bars and we finish the whole thing off. But this is the highlight here. So our highest notes, F, G. So let's find that. Okay, then we have a gapped scale going down here. It's starting on a D note. Skip a note. Skip a note. Okay, so the third bar of the B part. All right, and the ending bar is the same as the ending of the first part. So last 2 bars of the B part. Gap scale. Let's hook it to the first part of the B part, which was F. And the same thing with a D, highlight, gap scale, ending. Let's all play. How about the beginning of the tune? Uh-oh, who remembers how it started? Hopefully that sounds familiar. Okay, so twice that, and then our B part with a 1 and 2. That's kind of messy. However, it would be faster for dancing. So the speed for dancing. Which means you have to be singing Tolera vatamore, tolera van, tolera vilin, tolera vatamore. Ba 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 ba. Sai kari kara no suri. I'm so bad at the singing that you need to get a better singer for that. But you get the idea. I have to be pretty fluent to sing this stuff in any language, actually. So, but that's kind of the point, is that this stuff was not on profound topics because it was all about getting the rhythms out at the right time and being able to sing rather quickly. It's also why there's often transcription errors, because when people say things fast, the words kind of glide together and it's easy to misinterpret. And sometimes that was deliberate, because a word that sounds a little bit like another word, it meant that you could say something and claim you were saying something completely innocent and actually be saying something quite, a pun of some sort, or one that made fun of somebody. Like if the adjective means, clever, if it's with this vowel, but if you change one vowel, it's,
Right.
Something different.
Or Hatol abatamor becomes Hatol lem abatamor. I don't like the big boat. You could just change like one word and kind of one consonant, and you created a new verse. And I imagine that probably happened a lot as well, because that's practically a pun.
Yeah, right. So you could have double meanings, and double entendres are definitely part of this whole singing game. The clever wordsmiths could come up with things that had people in stitches, because if you went with the surface meaning, it's about porridge, and if you go with the pun meaning, it's like really making fun of somebody, or something like that. So that's definitely, I think, gives you a little bit of an idea of the sort of thing that was going on here. We're going to switch to handing out sheet music. I think the ear learning brains are full here, judging by the little meters in everybody's eyes. You're like, yep, full. Okay.
Glazing over.
Yep, glazing over. So I'll hand that out and tell you a little bit more about the context of this music and
Does anybody have a sheet of paper we could pass around? I did not bring a sign-up sheet with me.
We don't really do sign-up sheets anymore.
Don't need them?
Yeah, we haven't really been doing it for a while.
Well, we keep them anyway, but we don't need to. I don't know why I've been keeping the sign-up sheet. The treasurer
I mean,
is
it-
at treasurer's
look at
place.
this. Here's a clipboard and a piece of paper.
It is nice to know how many people showed up.
Well, you just sign it, we can continue, we won't have a
All
gap.
right, and let me get a pen to go with
There's
it.
one right here.
Just put the
Here we go.
date on the top. and
All right,
sign your name.
there you go.
Hijack this one.
All right,
Oh, okay.
4 pages. I'm just gonna collect them here because this is not quite as, did people print this out? Anybody print this out at
I
home?
did it.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did, but so I'll give it back when I'm done.
And I only made this many copies.
Pass it this way.
So if you don't need this copy to take home,
I don't have a printer at home.
okay. Can people share?
Yeah, maybe.
Now, can everybody see a copy?
Not yet.
Oh.
We can
Okay.
work
Wait,
on
I
it.
don't have my iPad. I have my iPad. I should bring up
Okay.
the website.
All right. And I give you this, but I took notes on it. So I can.
Well, you already have my pencil. Oh, here we go. I'll have this to be. Okay.
All right. on page 9, oh, I was going to tell a little more about the context. So this is the kind of music that would happen in spontaneous gatherings. And there's a name for, in the Gaelic culture, you know, the Highland culture and Island culture, the Gaelic-speaking regions of Scotland, for this type of social gathering. And the word is ceilidh. Now we think of a ceilidh, if you know ceilidh dancing, or, you know, the modern context of a ceilidh is like it's a dance where the dancing is kind of casual. But what ceilidh actually means is visit. So when you weren't working and you had some time off, you'd go visiting. So you'd go ceilidh. And things, I know ceilidh pretty intimately from its descendant in Cape Breton, where this Gaelic culture definitely got transferred, and a lot of the traditions are alive and well. So what would happen with the ceilidh is somebody would go over to somebody's house and start talking and sharing stories, and the word would get around, oh hey, somebody came to visit. So somebody from the other neighbor's house would come over. And then as soon as you have a critical mass, it would turn from not just like a couple of people talking and more into a gathering. And then it would be the sharing of songs and stories and news and tea and other beverages. And then music would happen. You know, somebody would say, oh, you've got your pipes, play us a tune. Or you've got your fiddle, play us a tune. And oops, I forgot to bring it. Well, let's just sing it. And then, oh, we've got enough people here. If you sing it, we can dance. We can get a set. We can get a reel of 3. Now, oh, we can get a reel of 4. We can get a 6-some reel going, or an 8-some. And so this kind of thing still happens in Cape Breton. They have ceilidhs, which are modern context, more concert, but there's still an element of the traditional Gaelic ceilidh to them. In other words, the concert will have somebody who's definitely hired to come and play tunes or sing. And then the ceilidh organizer will say, oh, well, so-and-so's here, and so-and-so's here, and so-and-so's here. Well, you're going to tell a story. You got that joke. You're going to dance, and you're going to sing. And, you know, so it turns into the more of the traditional meaning of ceilidh, despite the efforts to organize it into a concert. You know, it definitely resists that. And the other thing that happens in Cape Breton is a house party, which happens just the way the old ceilidhs would have, is that somebody comes over, they play some tunes, word gets around, people start showing up, and then you have, you know, this sort of round robin of informally, you know, somebody starts a tune, somebody else starts a tune. I have been to a few of these house parties where you never know exactly what's going to happen, and you never know exactly who's going to show up. In other words, I went to a house party where I did not know the host at all. I was invited by one of the people who was invited to the house party. And when we got to the approximate vicinity, we started asking the neighbors where the house party was. And they directed us to the correct house. We go in the house, and there's like the one person who invited me who I knew. And the rest were people I didn't know. So first I had to be neighborly and just sort of, you know, take it in. And then eventually they're like, okay, so what can you do?
Did you have your violin with
Yeah,
you?
so at that point I played a fiddle tune, and then they're like, oh, she gets it, you're fine.
Yeah.
You can stay. And my friend who was traveling with me, she had to step dance. Once she step danced, they were like, okay, yeah, you get it too. Now you're part of, you know, you're part of us. So that is the way that, you know, I'm pretty convinced that the way they do house parties and ceilidhs in Cape Breton now is pretty close to how these ceilidhs happened in the old days on Skye, in the context where these tunes that we're learning today all came from. So let's let's now do some of these tunes, and let me get the notes on this one. So this particular tune is quite a well-known tune, and we've had it before in Fiddle Club. It's known by the name in Gaelic, Saun an Ila. Ila is the Gaelic name for the island. I never know how to say this in English. Islay. Does anybody know? Is that pronounced Isla? Islay?
I think it's Islay.
Yeah.
I think it's Islay in the context of scotches.
Yeah, anyway, I never say it in English because I only learned it in the context of this song. Because the first thing I learned about this place was this song. Saun an Ila, Nila, Nila, Saun an Ila, look at me, Saun an Ila, Nila, Nila, Saun an Ila, boy. So I don't know what key I just sang it in. I've presented it in Fiddle Club in the key of G before. So in this collection from Keith Norman MacDonald, this Puirt to Beul, he has a very interesting variant of this that's not a strathspey like I just played, and instead is a reel. So let me play it for you. Now, the notes claim that there's no connection between this reel and the strathspey that other people know. I would differ because the B part is the same. It's really quite similar. So with a few minor changes, it's the same melody there. I'll tell you that the other part has migrated further. But it's kind of a big claim to say it has nothing to do with the other melody when it clearly does. It just has a bit of tweaking in the one part, and then the other part is either a migration in from some other place, or it has just evolved much further away from whatever the common source is. The words are the same. So it's Saun an Ila, Nila, Nila, Saun an Ila, look me, Saun an Ila, Nina, Ila, Saun an Ila, boya. I was born on Islay. I was born on beautiful Islay. Those are the words. I mean, I didn't give you the literal translation, but that's the... So let's go ahead and give this a trial. Slower. that's the tune. What else? I was going to say something about this. A whole bunch of thoughts running through my head as I was playing this, and now I've kind of like hypnotized myself out of them. Okay. Oh, just the one of the thoughts I'll share is in the context of the Ceilidh and of Puirt a Beul in general, mouth music. In Cape Breton, where I get to immerse myself in Cape Breton music every summer. There's definitely this tradition of mouth music, and not as many people speak Gaelic as they did in the 1800s in Cape Breton when there were a lot of Gaelic speakers. But Gaelic speaking lingered on longer in Cape Breton. My husband was watching film footage of the area around where it's actually where his ancestors lived in Cape Breton. It's a place that we go by every time when we go there. North River, and it's a film, they're speaking Gaelic. It's filmed in the 1920s or 30s. And they're still doing horse carts on the gravel road, and they're speaking in Gaelic. And you can, understand the greetings and things like that. And if you're a Gaelic speaker, you'd understand a lot more. But that's what I've got out of it. The other thing is that a lot of tunes are passed on in the Cape Breton fiddle tradition through what they term jigging. Jigging is not playing jigs or singing jigs. It's mouth music with vocables. So Buddy McMaster, the famous Cape Breton fiddler, his mother was known as a jigger. She would jig tunes, and he learned a lot of his first tunes from his mother singing that way. And we don't have a lot of the names historically of who are the people who were the well-known singers of this tradition. We know more about who were the well-known players of instruments, but less about who sang this music. But there were quite clearly a lot of people who did. So I just wanted to give you that little tidbit. And it certainly would have been at a similar period in Skye, it would have been similar. There's kind of a revival of interest in the language. Just like there's this interest in Celtic music. And I told you how I came across this book when I was at college, and that I was lucky to be out of college that had this lovely collection of historic music. My college also had, it's like a singing coffee pot or something. Anyway, probably they didn't even hear that, and they were like, what is she talking about? Anyway, they also had a Celtic languages department, which is a little unusual. There aren't that many universities in North America that have that. And they actually had a course in Scottish Gaelic, which I took, which is why my pronunciation of Gaelic words is like very academic. It's not how people really talk when they speak Gaelic. And the other thing is that I am completely non-conversational. I am more likely to be able to understand words like he smote the foe with his mighty sword than to understand words like I'm going to the store to get some eggs. Do you want any butter? Yeah. Right. I have
tales.
Completely non-conversational Gaelic. It's all based on reading heroic tales in this class at college. So, but that is really useful in the tune context because people don't write tunes about butter. They write tunes about the mighty hero.
Well, they do write Puirt a Beul about
yeah, they write
butter.
Puirt a Beul about butter. They definitely do. So anyway, and holes in boats. All right, so let's go on to the next tune. I should have put these closer to one another. Okay, so this tune is The Fair Wedding. The Fair Wedding is Keith Norman MacDonald's translation, but Vanish Van, the wedding, Van is the word for white. So, I mean, we all know what a white wedding is in modern context, so I imagine it's something similar. But the words are all about, oh, I love the good company. I love the company that's easygoing, not too serious. My best wishes for that company who lack neither cattle nor grain. In other words, they got the money. Did you hear about the white wedding that you and McDonald had on Tuesday up in this place? And they drank a whole large quantity of wine, etc. That's what this tune is about. So it is about a white wedding. I learned this tune a long time ago because I looked it up. I was looking for a Highland style strathspey that wasn't Broken Loam or Devil in the Kitchen, which were like, you know, the two tunes done for Highland Fling all the time. I wanted something that was a little different, and I found this one in the Gesto collection. But it also says it's by Lachlan McPherson of Strathmashi. He's mentioned in the notes in Simon Fraser's collection as a source of various songs and tunes. So, and that collection was published about 80 years before Keith Norman MacDonald's time. Okay.
Was Lachlan one of Simon Fraser's contemporaries, or was it one of the people that his father and grandfather collected?
Probably more somebody that his father-grandfather.
Collected. So we're talking mid-18th century.
Probably, or maybe late 18th century. I don't remember exactly what the context was in the Simon Fraser. I was unable to look at all the notes and find the name, but let me play it for you. So this one, you can see why this would sort of fit into Simon Fraser's world. If you've played any of the Simon Fraser tunes, they all end with this sort of, there's quite a few of them that end with this unresolved feel, like this one has. It's very much of of the character. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, so I have a couple things to say about this tune. So this unresolved feel, this is a very Gaelic music tradition. The kinds of chords, this is not what you find in the lowlands of Scotland. It's not what you find in European art music. When people who come from those, you know, more classical traditions encounter this music, they often get confused and they're like, where is the tonal center of this piece? And you kind of have to experience enough of this type of music so you can say, I know what key it's in. And sometimes that key is variable, like this one. There's a B natural in it.
Right.
And then it has G minor, I put G minor chords with it because it has mostly a minor feel, but that B natural says, oh no, it's not totally minor. And so when people from a more art music tradition encounter these Highland tunes, they often set them in a way that doesn't make sense to the Gaels from whom they took the tunes,
When you
because
say
they'll put
set-
harmonies that don't fit in that that cultural context. So the harmonies look weird from a Western music perspective, but they look like, a little more in context for Gaelic music. Also, this big thing about the B being natural. Historically, it would have been a B in between. Right, so the G minor and the G open unresolved can coexist because the actual scale is sitting in that crack between B flat and B natural. Because that the Gaelic music ear, particularly historically, was based on a natural scale, which is whole number divisions of harmonics. If I divide a string in half, 1/2, I get an octave. If I divide it in thirds, fourths, I get these pure tones. Well, those are nice pure tones, they sound great. If I divide it in 1/5, 1/6, 1/7, 1/8, 1/9, 1/10, 1/11, 1/12, they start sounding really wild. So this that's a result of a whole number division, but it's one of the ones that sits uneasily on our Western trained tradition. So my take on this one is that B is not flat and it's not natural. It's an in-between and is based on the natural harmonic scale. So you have to kind of inhabit a different world of harmony to really get these tunes. And it's something that has been changing over time. Historic bagpipes often are tuned to this natural scale. Modern bagpipes are moving ever closer to this Western scale.
Well, the big change in modern bagpipes is the D.
Yeah.
Because they still have, because they've got the drones, bagpipes still have to actually be harmonics of the drones.
Right.
But the D has moved from a very flat D, associated with a G arpeggio, to the modern, well, actually, to this Justin today, she's a 4/3, so
Right.
that you can play D major tunes on it.
Right. And
But
sound.
it's still a shifting
Right.
from different tonal centers.
And the C on historic bagpipes is not a C sharp and not a C natural. It's a C in between. And the G, the high G, is not a G natural, although it's usually interpreted that way. It's just a quite flat G sharp. Yeah. So it's really very, very much it's just a different tonal world, and you have to listen to somebody who plays with this tonal system in mind to kind of get how it works. Because if you approach it from the point of view of, this is not equal temperament, then you're going to say they're playing that wrong, that note's wrong, that one's flat, that one's out of tune, and it's mixed in with the fact that there are always going to be better players and not good players in any tradition. So you can get people who are playing perfectly in tune with this natural harmonic mindset that sound out of tune to people who come from a different tradition. Or you're going to get people who play badly with that system, and they're out of tune no matter which context you talk about. So, my advice is always listen to the really good players, no matter what. But
Would they have been, so we have chords written in here, would they have been played with anybody?
no, this
playing
mouth
chords?
music was unaccompanied, right? So unless people decided to harmonize singing, it would just be the melody.
Okay, so we're kind of.
So it's
adding
kind of like
things.
you have to, but there are instruments that did harmonize, like fiddles are playing open strings, droning strings, and the bagpipes have drones. And depending on how these things are specifically tuned, you hear different chords. So you kind of have to experience it, with somebody who's fully immersed in the tradition, or who has, specifically looked into historic versions of this music. But I think, if you spend enough time with this stuff, it starts to soak in. And like, to me, these wacky tunes played in Cape Breton with the third that doesn't sit in either place, to me, that sounds normal. Because I've listened to it so much, and I can tell the difference between an older style player and a modern style player, because the modern style players graduate more towards equal temperament, and the older style players don't.
Kind of like in early music, a lot of the modal stuff sounds weird to the modern ear, but that's
Right.
how it was written and sung.
Right.
And meant to be, yeah.
Right, is meant to be that way. Yeah. All right, next. On page 10, because we did the other tunes on page 9 by ear. And just, now that you see how it's written out, you see how Gallic's spelling looks. Basically, if there's an H there, you don't say the H, and it affects how the letter before it is pronounced. So very few things are pronounced with all of the consonants that appear to be there. The rules are quite regular if you learn them. It's actually more regular spelling than English. But to English speakers, it always looks like they don't spell anything the way it's pronounced. You just have to learn the rules. Okay, we have Amadan Gorek Sajer. Let me find the page for this one. This is in the context of the satire song. I think we mentioned as one of the categories that there are a lot of songs that poke fun at people. So, Gorak is an adjective describing somebody who's silly or foolish, or just generally acting like an idiot. And then Amadan is the word for fool. So this is like doubly emphasizing just how foolish this guy was. And there's not much in the words for this one, just the chorus, which is Amadan Gorik Gorik, Amadan Gorik Sajir, Amadan Gorik Gorik. Anyway, it's just basically, you silly, silly, silly fool. Soldier, you're a silly, silly fool. We don't know. The verses probably explain in what ways and how, but the chorus is the only thing left. So you'll have to obviously make up a story as to why this guy was such a fool. Let me play it for you. Okay, let's play it. Slower for starters. this because, let me find Will Land's notes on it. Later. Okay. Right, so, okay, right. Oh, here's another verse. Right, the verse in Gallic, so it says that the fool of a soldier, I saw you drinking last night. I saw you walking on the road with all your gear clanking, complaining that the road was too rough, when actually it was just too narrow. All right, that's all we know about the foolish soldier, but now we know alcohol was involved. All right, however, there's more to it, and this is a case where I probably have a little bit of disagreement with the scholarship here because they list as concordances or tunes that are the same, kick the rogues out. Let me play you Kick the Rogues Out. And you tell me whether it's the same tune. This is... There's a pipe version of Kick the Rogues Out. Okay, here's the pipe version. Is that the same tune? No. I mean, it's sort of like a pipey mode shifted version of the first version of Kick the Rogues Out. Both of them have nothing to do with this soldier tune.
Unless there's a lost Kick the Rogues Out.
Yeah,
that
right.
has-
So none of the versions mentioned as being the same tune actually are the same tune. So I think sometimes scholars get a little overeager to find a exact match. And yeah, I mean there is sort of this rhythm, you know, da 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 da, right? Which is but basically all slip jigs sound a little bit like that. And so, you know, like pick a random slip jig out of the hat and say, oh, if you shifted it to jig time, it would sound like this. Rhythmically, it would, but it's not the same. Okay, let's go moving on to 11, page 11. Huur me biedek ounce of vodak. I put a dagger in the old man. Whoa, what is going on here?
It's quite a confession.
Yeah, well, so there's another tune. Did I remember to bring it or not?
Right like that.
There's one that has a similar style to it, which is she put a knee on the old man. Which, you know, okay, were they wrestling, or is this a literal knee, or is it like a metaphoric knee, or what? So, so the words provided here, you know, it doesn't have anything exciting about why the dagger. Let me see if there's anything in the other notes. I have to check two places for notes on these. My one objection to the ebook is that you can't turn back and forth between the two pages easily. Nope. Doesn't say anything to give you an idea of the context.
Do you have the Gaelic for the put the knee on? Is it glunach?
Yeah.
Okay, that's, according to Dwelly, that's actually a kick from the knee. So they're both fighting of one sort of.
Fighting.
So it's not just like, putting a knee on somebody, like,
Right, it is more
holding
like-
them down. Yeah, it's
Yeah. That kind of kneeing them, like elbowing somebody. Yeah. Okay, I can get that. All right.
B-Dog is a dirk.
Yeah, B-Dog is a dirk or dagger. It's translated as dagger by Will Lamb. But there are a lot of tunes where there's a B-Duck in the title and it's translated as dirk, like Habidik McComish. McThomas or Thomas's son has a dirk. So this one has another name. Boy, the translation to the word is that Keith R. McDonald says that this is a very old reel. So whoever his source was claimed it to be very old. And it goes along with what Pete said about it being a fighting thing. I put a dagger in the old man. The old man cried out, and I threw him off the cliff and took his satchel from him. Boy, this is like violence.
Yes.
Violence. Very violent.
Aggravated assault.
However, the other title to this tune is one that I know very well from Cape Breton. And in Cape Breton, it has a completely different set of words in Gaelic. And it's Agavu ben Dolvik, which I think means, have you met Little Donald's wife? I forget what the verb gav means.
take.
Take. Oh, did you?
Did you take?
Did you take Little Donald's wife? Okay. So, okay, maybe it does have something to do with the violence.
After the satchel.
After he took the satchel, then he took the wife. I don't know. All right, let me play the tune for you. And it goes on like that.
That really sounds a lot like I'll break your head for you. Well, let me do gaan goed.
Yeah, although that's...
No. Yeah.
That's I'll break your head for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, but the B part kind of evokes that. Rhythmically. There's something similar in
Yeah,
character.
well,
I don't
this
know, maybe
is...
it's
Okay, I'm just going to tell you, this is a really, really old form. It goes back to the 1600s to do harmonies of this type,
okay.
where it's in, let's call it key 1 minor
And then
for the first part, and then the second part of the tune
Roll
goes to the
major.
3 major of whatever key you're talking about. So A minor goes to the 3rd note of the scale, C major in the B part. That is such a common form in Scottish music, especially older tunes. So I totally believe that this is an old tune.
well, the reason I bring
Yeah.
it up, the familiarity was, doesn't Simon Fraser mention that "I'll Break Your Head for You" was a fighting dance? That
Yes, it was a
mimic
fighting
of
dance.
stick fighting.
Yes, and there are lots of fighting dances. There's Reel of the Blackcocks is an imitation fight dance. And there are lots of cultures where there are fight dances. So it sounds like Gaelic tradition is not an exception to that. Let's go ahead and play this. It's going to be slower. Dun, dun, ba, ba, da, 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 da. 1 and 2 and. Anybody want to go faster than that? It's a great dance tune. And it's very popular in Cape Breton, as is a version of the next one. So let me find you the notes on the next one. The next one, Kun Gilles en Bollack Foto Roiv, the old man wouldn't give me any straw. It's known in Cape Breton as the straw man. It's Bollack Fodder. Fodder is obviously a cognate word with fodder, what you feed your horse. But the other name, Grieg's Pipes, this tune is super popular through the 19th century, Grieg's Pipes. You don't see it so much now, except the most living session playable one that I've heard is the Cape Breton version, the straw man. But the Grieg's Pipes was in like every collection through the 19th century and many 18th century as well. So I looked it up and I found it in Lowe's collection, which is from the 1840s. It's in the Skye collection. It's in the Athol collection. Anyway, let me play the tune for you.
Is that a Scottish name, or is that Grieg like we think of, the
Grieg?
composer?
Grieg? It's not like Edvard Grieg from Norway. No, it's like a version of Greg. Which has me really wondering, did the singer really have that 2-octave vocal range?
Yeah, really.
Or was it just Keith Norman MacDonald unable to resist putting in a fiddle version that he knew? However, so the words translate as the old man refused me straw, the old man refused me straw, that silly old man in the stable refused me straw.
Did Will Lamb, did he just strictly translate the Solfege version, or did he sort of add variants that were known from other sources?
No, he references variants from other sources. However, the transcriptions
in
are
the
yes,
transcription.
it is in. I have the Solfege version,
Oh,
and so I verified that. Yep, it's
Wow.
all 4 parts. I'm like, wow, he put in all 4 parts. Why did he do that? And but in the Skye collection, it looks very much the same.
Okay. Well, I asked that because
yeah.
there are some collections that when they're doing the vocal music, they will put the nearest, published version that they find rather than, adapt it necessarily to the words. But
Now-
if he's translating that's definitely interesting that he's got this 2-octave.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely a fiddle version. There are pipe versions of this tune as well. They obviously don't have 2 octaves. And I'm also not, I don't think the piping sources have, this low F sharp.
Right.
But they do have this A to B minor shift over and over again, which is what this tune is really similar to that other tune that we did that just had the 2 bars. It's variants on 2 bars. With where the second variant has a slightly different shift of chord, so it's essentially a 4-bar variant over and over and over and over again, and you can make up rhythmic stuff on that chord pattern and just keep going with this. All right, but there is kind of this prescribed four-part version with the high and the low. That's common. So let's go ahead and play this through. Okay, and faster at real time. 1 and 2. Okay, there is more to this story. And in order to properly tell you, I need to get this other fiddle out, which just so happens to be tuned in open tuning, AE. So the low strings are raised up. Because Keith Norman MacDonald says this is played scordatura on the violin, this tune. And so he thinks it should be played on this instrument and sound like this. Awkward fingering on the low strings becomes easier in this tuning, and the whole tune is more resonant. So it's pretty clear that, you know, what they mean is that this is a tune whose magic kind of depends on the alternate tuning. And to give you the Cape Breton context where this tune is known, as I said, not as Grieg's pipes, but as the straw man. This tune is only played in scordatura. In Cape Breton, they call it high bass. So it's a high bass reel. So it's still very closely related to Grieg's pipes. With the variant part, the B part is just kind of like pull it out of a hat. But the A part is straight out of Grieg's pipes. But only taking more advantage of the fact that you've got the tuned up low strings. So I just wanted you to experience that. I've never taught scordatura at a workshop because you have to change your violin tuning, and people break strings and things like that. They usually don't want to try it because they're afraid they'll mess their strings up and break them. People are also afraid of breaking their instrument, which frankly is very unlikely because the instrument's built to withstand the tension. But it does really profoundly change your instrument. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to page 12, because I want to make sure that we get through this workshop. Boy, these tunes have a lot to say about them and a lot to do about them. I probably should have had like a page less of stuff. But the next tune, I told you how some of them had more of a story to them. And let's look at Shoot Marchai an Kal Agolech. So it's about cabbage. It really is about cabbage. And you would think, well, how can a tune about cabbage be in any way profound? The verses given in Puirt de Beul, the original source, you can already see there are many more verses than just, like the unfinished story about the soldier, right? Where we didn't know what he did that was silly. Here we get the whole story. There's more verses on the next page. So, here's how the kale was spoiled. This flour stuck to the bottom of the pot. And that's the way the kale was spoiled for the lowland man. And then it goes on. After we've been singing songs for a bit and spent a while exchanging the stories, in other words, they're having a ceilidh, right? And Rob put his pipes in order and some folk began to dance. And then the women of the house burst in with all the other women of the village, every young girl and old women there, whoever was up for a dance. And then Rankin, he went and got the curly-haired girl, and I myself took the woman of the house out, and in a blink of an eye, there was a woman in the arms of every man there. There was joyful bustle circling the floor, the pipe chanter thrilling us to speed with the big drones roaring, and the floorboards were beginning to shake, and then the man of the house himself arrived with a group of friends from the lowlands. Oh, what a racket downstairs. They just came in from the market and they were yelling at the women, and their frowns were awful. They were exhausted and tired and hungry, and all day long having had nothing, and it was a wretched thing to come home and find the kale was ruined. The man scolded his wife. She replied bitterly to him, "Hold your tongue, stop your growling. Because instead of going out with your cronies from the lowlands, I was playing amongst the Gaels, pipe music in the Gaelic language, and I've always loved them more." Ooh, wow. And that's the way the kale was spoiled. It returns to the first verse. So it was while they were dancing and having a ruckus, and you know, obviously this mixed marriage of Highlander and Lowlander, and he didn't get the culture, so instead of participating in the ceilidh, he was out with his friends and didn't understand how the dinner came to be burned. So let me play the tune for you. You'll recognize the tune because it's not that different. So that tune is the Hawes of Cromdale, a very well-known tune. And my phone is just making a racket, so I'm just gonna see if there's, nope. It's my neighborhood Christmas caroling group suddenly deciding to get active. Not relevant to this. So, anyway, let's play the tune. And instead of thinking about the historic battle on the Hawes of Cromdale, we can think about how the kale was spoiled with this by this ceilidh. Now, kale has a double entendre in Gaelic, because the way that you say you don't have anything is that you say, I don't have kale. And so it's maybe not only how the kale was spoiled, as how anything got spoiled. All right, so
It got
definitely.
spoiled because it was the last thing they had.
Right, or maybe everything was already spoiled.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's not a lot of hope for that particular mismatched marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but I wanted to give you that tune just because there was so much more of a story.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is unusually in 3/2. And we had the reel that was in 3/2, right? The singing game one that we learned by ear earlier. Let's find the notes on this one, which there we go. Yeah, right. This one, Bodach Inchacro, the old man from Inchacro. Bodach Inchacro, Bodach Inchersela, Bodach Inchacro, Bodach Inversela. So the old man of Inchcrow, old man of Invershiel, old man of Inchcrow, old man. Yeah, it's not
Profound.
it's not profound. However, it's really unusual to have this triple hornpipe style tune. Let me play it for you. slower. Okay, so in Bill Lamb's notes, he takes note that there are scholars who say that the meter of 3/2 and triple hornpipes is never found in the Gaelic world of Scotland. I guess we now know it is. And so there's a lot of speculation about it. But he says this is the only 3/2 Gaelic tune that he's come across. You know, he looked all over trying to find a concordance for it and not available. Let's go ahead and play it, and then I have one more thing.
It
to
seems
say
like
about
this
it.
was probably, because this was a well-known tune
Oh, it's
in the
very
lowlands
well-known
of
tune.
Northumbria
Very well-known tune.
from the early 18th century at least.
Yeah, it goes
Is
back
it-
to the 1600s.
Okay,
Yeah. And I have
Because I-
I have
'cause it-
more to say about that.
all right,
Let's play it first.
all right.
Okay, so in this book, it is said that the other name for this tune, the lowland name, is Dusty Miller. Let me play you Dusty Miller. Is that the tune we were just playing?
Not the tune.
No, it is not the tune we were playing. Here is the tune it really is in from the lowlands. That does sound like it, doesn't it? So the tune is actually Go to Barrack Johnny. It's the other most famous, besides Dusty Miller, 3/2 from the lowlands. So I think this was just simply a matter of, when you're convinced it's a 3/2,
Go to the one that's in your
you
head.
go to the one that's in your head, because I'm a collector of 3/2 hornpipes. I probably know, somewhere between 80 to 90% of the ones ever published in Scotland, and historically, their heyday was the early decades of the 1700s, but they existed a little bit before then, and continued to exist for a little while after then. They definitely went out of fashion by the end of that century. So it's a different one than they identified. So I gave you the correct identification.
This feels a bit more like the standard version that you played. It feels a bit more like the one out of the Dixon manuscript.
Right,
the bird bully.
it's probably more of a Piper's version rather than one with more flourishes. All right, let's move on, because speaking of pipers, this is a tune from a piper, John Dal Mackay. Let me read what the notes. Okay, So it's Keith Norman MacDonald who identified it as being by John Dal Mackay. The words are Caliclia Rasse, the gray-haired old woman of Rasse. Hundreds of people visit her. And then it goes on and on about, the characteristics of this particular person. And so let's see, the notes from, I have to go a little farther. The notes from Will Lamb talk a little bit about John Dal Mackay, who is identified as having lived from 1656 to 1754. Dal is Gaelic for blind, and often in those days somebody who was blind, whether they were born that way or lost their vision at some point, certain childhood illnesses commonly cause blindness. Some of the ones that we have vaccines against them today, so the kids don't have to go blind. But that was unpreventable back then. And people who, lost their vision early in life were often trained to be musicians, because that's a profession you can do with your ears and don't need sight for. And of course, it assumes that you're learning all your music by ear. So hence ear training being an important part of our routine too. So anyway, so he would have been a blind piper. We don't know enough of his bio from this context to know whether he was perhaps born blind or went blind. But just like Turlough O'Carolan, the famous harper, was blind, I think it was, in his case, smallpox that blinded him. But then, he made a living going around with his harp and playing music. All right, let me play you the tune. Pipeable,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like in an odd mode for a pipe tune.
No, it's just a whole step down from the way we play it.
Oh, you would play it on A?
We play it A. So yeah, this is just, it's just a whole step down.
Okay, so maybe it's not so odd.
Yeah.
All right, I won't comment on that
Or
anymore.
a really, really flat chanter.
Really flat chanter. Right, well, that is entirely possible.
Yes.
Because what pitch was A has been something that has varied over time.
I have a book this thick about it.
Yeah, like what is A? We define it as 440 hertz, but it definitely was not always defined that way. And so you find, particularly in pipes, flutes, recorders, whistles, where the pitch that the pipe or pipe-like instrument is made on is whatever pitch somebody decided was the pitch.
Unless
Right.
you were playing an ensemble, it didn't matter.
Right, so if you're just playing on your own, you could make it whatever pitch.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I think even the A440 that was determined in what, about 1930, 1940?
Yeah, it was
quite
standardized remarkably late in the game.
And-
We think A is so defined now,
Yeah.
but.
well, there are also different pitches for different occasions. You have one pitch standard for opera, one for the king's chamber, one for the church. But this also, there was a tradition, and you see it in the Dixon manuscript, of writing pipe tunes, especially border pipe tunes, in G Mixolydian, so you don't have to worry about a key signature. And so all the Dixon manuscript is written in G Mixolydian, and that's for border pipes. But in the last page, apparently, I just learned this because it was discussed on a bagpiping podcast. There's actually a note that's saying it's actually played one note higher than this. So they're playing it in whatever their A was, but they're reading it as a transposing instrument.
Right.
Because you don't have to
it's
worry about
like-
sharps or flats. if you write it in G
It's like clarinets in modern band or orchestra. The clarinet reads music that looks like it's written in C, and it actually comes out on the clarinet in B flat. But if you change clarinets, you could play clarinet. You could play it in the key of A. You could play it in the key of C. You could play it in a different key if you had enough clarinets of slightly different sizes. So that's what Pete's talking about with the pipe music being written in.
Right.
It's just like, here's our key. Now go pick up whatever set of pipes you want, and whatever key they're in, that's the key it's going to come
And
out
even in
in.
modern pipes, we write it in the same keys the fiddlers play it in, but it comes out of our chanter
Higher.
about 3/4 of a step sharper.
Right. So let's now play the gray-haired old lady of Rosse. Okay. All right, so one last tune and we'll call it and be done. The Oh Ho, Federweg, Federweg. Oh Ho, the periwig. Okay. This is a wig, standard wear in the 1700s, right? You know, you're not dressed unless you're wearing your wig. And it hides all kinds of things, like you didn't comb your hair, you didn't wash your hair, you have no hair.
There's something crawling in your hair.
So there's a story to
Is
this.
that true for women too, though?
Well, the women of those times in that place were tending to wear caps. So their hair could be anything under that cap. So again, the didn't comb, didn't wash, don't have any. That's all hidden by the cap.
The only women who wore their hair with ribbons rather than caps would be unmarried women.
Right. So if you're young and unmarried and trying to attract attention with your nice shiny hair.
Which is why one of the Gaelic words for a young girl is a hairy, gruagach.
Right. It's not referring to
Being hirsute.
right other forms of hairiness that might be less appealing. Okay, let me find, because this is the story for this. I mean, it does have words in the in Keith Norman MacDonald, which I have to go back to the other part. But the real story is in Simon Fraser's collection, right? And Simon Fraser says this was sung by his grandfather and friends. They're one of his great sources of music, was things sung and known to his grandfather's circle of musical friends. There was an incident where one of these friends, it is said, tickled the minister wearing under his wig. The minister thought there was a critter in his wig and shook the wig over the fire. He dropped it, and the wig got singed. And so the name in the circle of friends was, the real name is the fried periwig. Anyway.
And of course, burning hairs.
Oh.
Oh, and it was probably powdered too.
Oh yeah. I mean, this was probably really
I'm surprised it didn't go up in total flames.
pretty awful, but yeah. Anyway, it's obviously a incident of great fun.
You never lived it down.
Yeah, like never lived it down. So the I'll play you the Simon Fraser version of this just so you got it in your ear, and then we'll learn the sung version, which is a lot simpler. So here's the Simon Fraser version. Now that would be kind of hard to sing. So the sung version. Yeah, I gotta read what I wrote. So it kind of reduces that melody to its most important essence, and you don't have to work nearly as hard. So let's play it. Okay, faster? Okay, I guess that's enough for now. All right, so we're gonna call it, because it's been a long enough workshop. But I hope you had fun getting this little window into the Gaelic culture and that side of Scottish music, and how the singing tradition influenced the way these tunes are constructed and played. I certainly had a lot of fun geeking out about this, and it's been a topic of a lot of fascination for many years for me. So,
Thank you, Elke.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Does anyone need a copy